Welcome. We're continuing with the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text number 9. And this is a very interesting part where we get to understand something about the material nature in the world we live in and how it affects us in our consciousness. Very few people talk about this topic today. Everybody talks about consciousness, but very few people talk about the effect that different aspects of material nature have on us. And then what do we do about that? So material nature is known as Prakriti, and Prakriti has an influence. Like a lot of people will talk to you about, well, just a simple thing, the weather can have an influence on you, right? You can feel kind of low. In summer, everybody's out and feeling good and enjoying the weather. In winter, people hibernate. So it's a simple little, it can be as simple as that. But it's a lot more complex. And so we'll get into some of those details as well. You'll also find that the effect of, people talk about astrology and how that affects us. And so definitely there are influences upon us, and a lot of people use that kind of understanding to explain the way they are or what they do or how they're feeling. We are, however, going to explore ways in which to go beyond such things, such influences, and be able to literally create what I call your own weather. Literally, the mood is in your hands, not in the weather, not in the stars, not in something that is out there, but something that is in here. So let's begin by reading what Krishna is saying, and then we'll dive into that. He says here, O son of Bharat. Bharat actually is the name for India originally. And in the time of the British and the time of the, maybe it was the Muslims, but definitely during the time of the British, this name India was concocted. But actually the original name is Bharat. Bharat Varsh means the land of Bharat. Bharat was a great king. Bharat was a great king, and his land was called Bharat, Bharatvarsh. So, Arjun, being a descendant of King Bharat, way back, is being referred to here as the son of Bharat. So, Krishna says to Arjun, he says, O son of Bharat, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions one to karma, or fruitive action. And ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness. So what he's talking about here is there are certain modes of material nature, or gunas, as they are called in Sanskrit. So the gunas are three primary gunas they are, and they are Sattva gun, known as the mode of goodness. And he says that conditions one to happiness. You start feeling happy, generally speaking. You are no longer affected by the way the world is. You are the one that controls your inner world. And therefore, you experience happiness on a regular basis. Passion, that is Rajogun. So we have Sattva gun. Sattva also is known as truth. Sattvic, right? Sattvic diet. Many people have heard of that term. And we'll be talking about what those terms are and how that diet is, and what all of that stuff will come in this chapter. We'll even look at the influence of food on consciousness, just as that topic comes up. So, Sattva gun, from which comes the sattvic diet, and sattva gun, from which comes a sense of peacefulness and goodness. So that conditions one to happiness. So conditions meaning you begin to experience on a more regular basis. Your mind is conditioned now to be happy. Passion, or rajagun, is where one is engaged heavily in karmic activity. You're very attached to the fruits of your labor. You're working hard to achieve success. And that is your purpose in life. And then there is tamogun, or the mode of ignorance, and in which you find yourself not motivated, lazy, frittering away time, being, just engaging in all kinds of activities that are not beneficial for your health, for your well being, or for your mind for that matter. So that is the tamagun. Tamasic is the word used. Um, so sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the mode of passion and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always a competition for supremacy. In other words, within us are certain states of consciousness. I would really like to call these states of consciousness. It is not consciousness in its pure form, but is consciousness as it comes, as it filters through our human organism, our brain, our mind, our ego. And as it filters through here, it is now being affected by different forces. Okay, there are the forces of the world, and then how we process those forces of the world is going to determine our state of mind. Right? So that might be a more accurate word than consciousness, because a lot of people get confused these days. Consciousness is thought of as that soul consciousness, that pure consciousness. But I think consciousness can also more loosely be used as a state of mind. So, however, if you're a stickler for precision, I'll stick to that. Or if you are okay with a more loose definition, I'll stay with that. By the way, any of you have any questions as I'm speaking, please feel free to raise your hand. I do have a way here where I'm able to see that your hand's been raised, and I'll be happy to take any questions at any time. Okay? You don't have to wait. Just put up your hand on the Zoom app itself. You can put up your hand and I will see that, and I will invite you in as soon as I'm done saying what I'm saying. I'll invite you in to, come and ask your question. I will ask you, however, to have your video on if you're going to ask a question. Also, you're welcome to ask your questions in the text, but I would much rather you come on in person. It's much more lively that way. All right. So we're talking about the modes of nature and how they influence us. And how they interact with each other within us. There's a part of us, for example, that's saying, hey, let's get out there and achieve something. Let's go out there and work and make something happen. And, we can then go on that vacation and we can have these wonderful times. There's another part of you that's saying, oh, come on, let's take it easy. Let's relax. Why do you want to work so hard? What's the point of all that? There's a beautiful show going on Netflix right now. And, hey, let's relax. Let's get some food. Let's get some pizza. Let's kick up our feet and let's chill. What is all this hard work for? Come on, cut it out. Right? And then there's another part of you that's saying, no. All this is useless. I've worked enough. I don't have to keep working all day long. Like, I'm not a slave here. I just want to meditate. I just want to clear my head and I want peace of mind. And in this battle that's going on between these different voices in our head, only you know which one wins. It's different at different times, certainly. And we all have our own battles. But it is very important to know that if we let the battle within our mind go unchecked, then we will become its victim. I mean, the victim of our mind. And it will now be in control. And wherever it chooses to take us is where we'll go. And typically, where the mind takes us is not to a good place. To the degree that you are steering your mind, the degree that you are in charge of it, you are more likely to be either productive or at best happy. And I'm not saying these two are the same thing. Krishna is making it very clear. Rajogun is not the place of happiness. Rajogun, or the mode of passion, is the place where you have push and pull, doing, achieving, stress, anxiety, worry, all kinds of stuff that you're going through in the course of a given day. It is only when we stop all activity and we focus on ourselves from within that we come into the mode of goodness. And there we find peace. And there we find something that is consistently peaceful and happy. So that's a different quality of happiness. The happiness found in Rajogun, or the mode of passion, is, well, you drink, you eat, you party, you do all of that stuff. That's all in the mode of passion. So Krishna continues here in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text number 11. The manifestation of the mode of goodness, or sattva-gun, can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Knowledge means not knowledge of Google. Knowledge does not mean the knowledge of many books, and knowledge is not about your intellect and the information that you have. The word knowledge here is gyan, and gyan refers to spiritual wisdom, the kind of stuff we're doing today, right? So when he talks about the different gates of the body, right? That is the eyes, the ears, the mouth, all the orifices of the body, all the intake, that's the idea. The intake that we're taking in within us is filled with gyan, knowledge, spiritual wisdom. That knowledge which illuminates our consciousness, illuminates our spirit. What does that illuminate mean, actually? It's sort of a strange word to use, because spirit doesn't need illuminating. It is luminant by itself. It's just that it is covered by all our thinking and all our feeling and all our desires and all our needs and all our worries and all our anxieties. It is covered by that. Spirit, which is self-luminant, is now covered. So what does it take to bring out the fire in wood? It takes another fire, like a match, right? You take that match, and under the right conditions, I'm not going to go into the details of making a fire, but it takes that fire to spark another fire. So it takes the fire of knowledge, the luminance of knowledge, to awaken the luminance of the soul, right? It takes the chanting of the mantra. It takes something spiritual to rekindle that part of you. So you'll notice that when you get in touch with something that is truly spiritual, that spark, and it doesn't mean it has to come out of a mantra or a spiritual book. It'll come out of a popular song, for that matter, sometimes. But there are certain things in certain places and certain people that just spark you, and you come alive in their presence. When you're hearing that place, when you're hearing, seeing, being in the presence of, you come alive. You come alive in a way that is not about doing something, but it's like your soul came alive that day or that moment. And it came alive. There are symptoms. It's not something you just guess. The symptoms are you feel happy for no reason at all. Nothing has happened. No one's done anything. There's a soft, gentle happiness. There's a feeling of lightness. There's a feeling of peace. There's a feeling of being uplifted. Now, this could happen while watching a sunset. It could happen when you're meditating, and it can happen when you're reading and listening to the Bhagavad Gita. So you need that kind of spark to illuminate and to awaken the soul. And when it is awakened, you will feel all these wonderful qualities, all these wonderful symptoms within yourself. Peacefulness, kindness, compassion. They all go together. They're all like a rainbow with many, many colors in it. You may feel one or more of them more prominently, but they're all there. So that's what he means by illuminated by knowledge. When the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion or rajogun, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity. Fruitive activity is where you are attached to the fruits of your activity. That's the term fruitive activity. So great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. So whenever you've had that great desire, great hankering, uncontrollable desire, yeah, intense endeavor, attachment to the fruits of your activity, right? And attachment to the things you've earned and gained from your work. This tremendous attachment, right? If somebody even so much as nicks your car, you're upset, you're screaming, you're yelling. If someone treats anyone, says something bad to you, there's intense attachment to your body, intense attachment to your ego, and anything anyone might say against you is taken very personally and is seen as an affront. There's an attachment to how you look and to who you are and what the ego conceives of as you yourself. And anything that comes to attack that is now defended vigorously because there's attachment. In the mode of goodness, that attachment wanes. In the mode of goodness, that attachment becomes small, maybe minimized, maybe not at all. But that's where we're going. The direction is to realize that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not the story of this life. Yes, it happened to this person in this body in this time, and yet that is not my true identity. My body suffered, my mind suffered, and yes, they may need some help, for sure, right? There's no ignoring that. But the true me was unaffected by it all. I'm going to pause for a few moments, see if someone's got a question. Take a break. Maybe some of you want to ask something. All right, then, and we continue. When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance or tamogun. So 3 words I'd like you to remember today. Sattvagun, sattva, S-A-T-T-V-A, sattva. Okay? Rajas, R-A-J-A-S, and tamas, T-A-M-A-S. 3 words. Sanskrit words. All right. I have a fascinating question here. I'm going to put it up. So what do you do when your morality is in conflict with another's? Yeah, we've tried to develop through religion and through our constitution and through all our different control systems in the world a one-size-fits-all morality. And it's a great question, Nivi. Thank you for asking. But when we look at morality from that perspective, it doesn't fit everyone. I do understand that there's a certain basic common code that needs to be there to live peacefully and to coexist amongst other human beings. But much of the morality that has been handed down to us has proven to create enormous guilt, shame, fear, self-doubt, feelings of unworthiness. They haven't served us. The idea is that it's meant to serve us and not that we are meant to be destroyed by our sense of morality. It's a big question to get into. I'm not going to take it up today, but definitely one day I will. But when your morality is in conflict with another's, you're going to find yourself, being shamed. You're going to find yourself being made wrong and bad. And it's horrible. It is horrible. It is not in any way serving us. The path of spiritual growth, and see, the problem is that spiritual and religious leaders, gurus and priests alike, have been the guardians of morality. And unfortunately, they have misused that power. True spirituality is not about shaming and guilting people, but rather it is of compassion. So if I can give you, there are so many examples. There's the example of Draupadi, and when she was, I think perhaps one that everyone will relate to, which is really stands apart, is when there were these people during the time of Christ who were stoning a woman who had committed adultery. And they were all getting ready to stone her, and they said, Master, will you, is this all right with you? What do you think? Would you join us? Because she has committed adultery. According to the law of the time, she needs to be stoned to death. That was the punishment. It was written. And Christ said to them, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And nobody had the guts to say that they were sinless, that they had never done something wrong in their life. And I think that's the place to come from. It is that place of true, heartfelt compassion, to understand that all of us are flawed human beings. We make mistakes, we do foolish things. And we need to practice how to love and care for each other through all of that. That is the great work. That is the work of unconditional love. That is the work of spiritual enlightenment. If you call yourself an enlightened being and you're judging people left, right, and center, and you're telling everyone how they're wrong and bad and should do this and should do that, I'm sorry, you're no enlightened being. As an enlightened being, there is another saying. This is from the Veda. It says, "It is the quality of the wise to see that which is best in others and overlook their flaws." If you can live by that, you've attained something. It is the quality of the wise to see that which is best in others and overlook their flaws. This is from the Bhagavad. Then Krishna continues, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, or tamogun, tamas, T-A-M-A-S, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifest. You'll see in today's time more and more of this is happening. Yes, we are a country, especially in the US, that is all about the mode of passion. It's about doing, achieving. In fact, people don't even take time to rest during the weekend. It's always doing. Clean the house, do this, fix that, always mow the lawn. It's always something. Clean the car. It's always something. And when you come here, you kind of get affected by that, infected by that energy. But it's important to relax and do nothing. It's important to use that time to be in stillness and quiet. That's also important. I've learned to do it throughout the day. Moments stolen from the day, moments here and there, moments walking to the car, moments sitting down at a traffic light, moments stolen through the day where you come back. But that takes some practice getting to. If you might want to take out a few minutes here and a few minutes there, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, steal them out of your day, and you'll find that you can no longer be affected. See, the point of the mode of goodness, the point of being in the sattva gun, or the sattvic state, is that the world no longer affects you the way it did. People no longer affect you the way they did. Situations, the weather, whatever, stars, your destiny, your fate no longer affects you the way it did. So we're starting to see, of course, the mode of we've been seeing the mode of passion, but we're now seeing a rise in the mode of ignorance, or tamagun, where you see more and more of darkness, people hating on each other. That's a mode of darkness. People becoming polarized from each other, finding between their families, between their loved ones, hating on each other over ideologies, over silly things. Instead of being able to hear each other's point of view, instead of being able to love each other with our differences and with our flaws, we begin to condemn each other. Those are the signs of darkness rising. Inertia is about not doing anything. You see a lot of people feeling very unmotivated. The general term here, madness, refers to everything that has to do with mental health. You see a rise in mental health issues. And it's really sad. I am in the field of mental health as a spiritual counselor. I find this rise of mental health issues to be sad and devastating because it comes from a basic root that people have not been shown how, and I was not shown, and I had to learn, but we have not been shown how to be in charge of our thoughts and how to deal with our emotions, right? How to be in charge of our mind. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, for one whose mind is under control, it will be the best of friends. And for one who has failed to control their mind, it will be the greatest enemy. So when we see this, the rise of mental illness, it's really coming from this root of not knowing how to be in charge of your thoughts and emotions, knowing how to work with them. It's a mastery, it's an art, and it should be learned by every human being. But the result is we start seeing more and more of the tamagun, the tamas, the mode of ignorance. And with that comes the rise of great illusion. In other words, the illusion is the escapism, whether that escapism is in the form of movies, video games, entertainment of all different kinds of sorts. We're just escaping, or taking different kinds of drugs. And I'm not saying a little of it here and there is okay, that's fine. It's just being careful not to overdo it and immerse ourselves too much. It's easy to get there. I feel and experience that sometimes as well. So I have a question here from T.I. Who is T.I.? Can you type your full name, please, so I know? The question is, it's important to see good in others. Oh, that is tapasya. Okay, got it. It's important to see good in others, but how do we balance between seeing good and holding accountable someone for their wrongdoing that impacts our well-being? Or we continue to ignore that and keep accepting people's bad behavior as well. Where do we draw the line? Tapasya, love your question. Thank you so much. Excellent. I talked to you about when I quoted that line from the Bhagavad, it was about the quality of a very wise person. Now, wise people often aren't very involved with the world. They couldn't give a damn about whether you talk badly about them, whether you mistreat them, or you do something that is wrong by them. Because they're not attached to their ego, they're not attached to their thoughts, they're not attached to your behavior. They have the ability to penetrate through that and see that which is best in you. And to that degree, when a person is seen for that, when the gaze of the beholder is that powerful that it penetrates the ugliness, the nastiness, the meanness, the crudeness of another being, when you see that which is best in another and you hold that up to their sight, something shifts in that person when you are not affected by that. It's like when a child cries and says, I hate you, mommy. I don't want anything. I don't want you. You don't love me anymore. Children sometimes say things like that. Sometimes they say mean things. Sometimes they're very, direct. And if we take it personally, no, but as a parent, you'll see that which is best in your child, and you will help them overcome their flaws or their anger or their emotions or their thoughts by helping them see that which is best in them. We all have this ability. It's about penetrating the veil of illusion created by the person's actions. But let's get down from the high level, from the high ground, to a more practical level. And I'm sure you'd prefer that. Because not all of us are at the place of great enlightenment and wisdom. We need something that we can deal with on a day-to-day basis. At a day-to-day basis, I would say to you, always see the best in others. Now, as far as taking care of your well-being or holding them accountable for their actions, it's okay to learn to set boundaries. It's okay to learn to say, hey, that doesn't work for me. That hurts. I would appreciate if you would speak differently. It's okay to request. It's okay to be firm and not tolerate the nonsense that people might want to dish out to you. It's okay. It's okay to not, if you're going to the direction of becoming a doormat where everybody is kind of like ridiculing you and putting you down, and it is hurting your ego, and you are becoming more and more introverted and reserved and unable to cope with life, then you're not in that high ground. So don't even try to imitate it, right? There is a stage where you stand for your ego. The ego is your sense of self, who you think you are. It is important to function in the world. It is the vessel with which you live this life. Just like this body is the vessel with which you live this, so is the mental, the mind, and the ego. It has to be kept healthy, like your car has to be kept healthy. But there is a stage beyond that that we must aspire for. And that is the stage of recognizing that I'm not the car, I'm not the body, and I'm not the mind, I'm not the ego. And that if the ego is going in a certain way and getting hurt, I can simply say to my ego, hey, it's okay. This person is a good person, but they're hurt right now. You might have heard the saying, hurt people, right? This person is hurt and therefore is doing things to try to hurt me. So you can develop a wiser approach, but not at the cost of your own ability to function in the world. If you're going to take the moral high ground, then make sure that you are in a good state of mind. You are in a peaceful state of mind, a wise state of mind, where you can discern and where you can calm and pacify your egoic mind while still learning to see that which is best in others and hold up the candle to them of their goodness. Because everybody, even the Bhagavad Gita points this out, everybody has this battle going on within them. The battle of goodness, passion, and ignorance, constantly going on within them. And if someone reminds you and sees that which is best in you, it's very powerful. They might say, no, I'm just a loser. I've never said, no, I've seen you succeed at many things. I've seen you do this and that and that. And and you hold the evidence for them of all the wonderful things that they have done. And then in those moments when they feel themselves to be completely useless or not good enough or any of that stuff, they will begin to rise up and begin to regain faith in themselves. We have the ability to do that. I hope, Tapasya, that answers your question. If there's anything further, please let me know. Krishna continues, chapter 14, text number 14. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages. So according to the Vedas, for those of you that aren't familiar, Ved means knowledge. Vedas are the ancient texts of knowledge that come from India that were written 5,000 years ago and were there for perhaps many, many tens of thousands of years even before that. They were an oral tradition that used to be handed down by word of mouth and that finally got recorded in writing. So in the ancient Vedas, they speak about the fact that there are living entities on every planet. They say that you cannot see them when you go there because they vibrate at different frequencies. They exist in different planes of consciousness. So when you go there, you might see nothing. And that's what's happening, I believe. We are going to different planets right now and we're seeing nothing. We think that certain planets have got no habit. They're not the appropriate habitat for human beings. And that is true. If you went to Jupiter or Saturn, you could not live there. The conditions are just not habitable for human beings. But it doesn't mean that there aren't living entities who can easily survive in those conditions. There are living entities under the water. There are living entities deep within the water. There are living entities everywhere, right? So it's just a question of the right species that can live in that environment. According to the Vedas, there are living entities everywhere in all the planets. And there are planets that are called the higher planets, which I think some people call the heavenly planets, where there is great pleasure, long life, very little suffering. Then there are planets that are called the hellish planets, not because there are fires burning there and people are being roasted alive, but because people suffer more. And then there is the middle, which is the earth, where there is an equal amount of happiness and suffering. So you'll find that this exists even on this planet. There are places on this planet where there is much abundance of money and health and good looks and plenty of food and everything that you need to have a comfortable life. And then there are places where none of that is there, even on this planet. And then there are places where it's sort of balanced. You have a little of this and a little of that. So you'll find that this concept that he's talking about, that people who are in the mode of goodness go to the higher planetary systems. They go to the Svargalok is the actual word in Sanskrit. And those who are in the mode of passion, he says, take birth among those engaged in fruitive activities or karmic activities. When one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. So the clear understanding is this, that those who are engaged in the mode of goodness get to go to the higher planetary systems. Now, there is another verse coming up where he says that even if you go to the planets where there's the greatest pleasure and least suffering, all of them ultimately are places of suffering wherein repeated birth and death take place. So, in other words, even the person, so for the person who has great riches, has wonderful body, has great health, the loss of that is even more painful than one who doesn't. One who has great beauty, when loses it, it's great suffering to lose it. One who has great riches and loses it, it's great suffering because now they don't know how to live an ordinary life like other people, right? So, in the same way, all the planets within this world, the hellish planets, the heavenly planets, in the middle planets of the earth, ultimately are places of suffering wherein repeated birth and death take place. Krishna says, but one who returns to my abode never returns to this temporary and miserable world. So, when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth amongst those who are engaged in karmic activities, that is, like on earth, right? And when one takes birth, dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. This part is very important to understand. The Vedas talk about how there are 8,400,000 species of life, including birds, animals, humans, etc. The human form of life is meant for cultivating spiritual knowledge. It doesn't matter in which religion you go, it doesn't matter in which spirituality you go, as long as you are on the path of some kind of spiritual awareness, you are utilizing the human life properly. If you are not utilizing the human life properly and all you're after is material achievements, even then you get to be here. But if you are doing neither of the two and you are simply wasting your life, spending, let's say, entire days and nights eating, sleeping, in a drugged out state perhaps, or in a state of mind where you have lost your mental faculties, or you're just, pigging out. Maybe it's better to be a pig than to be a human who's pigging out. Maybe it's better to be an animal who's, eating other animals than to be a human who's doing that. Then at least you're rightly situated and there's no karmic residue for you. So that explains why we see so many people, coming to this earth, because this earth is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. It is considered that even people in the heavenly planets and the higher realms come to this earth and take birth here. Because here, when you have an equal balance of happiness and suffering, pleasure and pain, it's the perfect environment in which you wake up. And you start questioning, who am I? Why am I here? What is life? What is this all about? You start inquiring about the meaning and purpose of life. It happens more so here than anywhere else. Because there's this push and pull. Because there's this mind that's always troubling us. And this is deliberate, the design of this mind, by the way. And the fact that we don't have perfect education with how to deal with it, this is all deliberate. So that we may wake up. We may start to rise beyond this struggle for existence, this struggle to become free of suffering, and realize that in fact, we are much more than that. That in fact, suffering is very much something that is created by our minds and is not. While there is physical pain and there is hunger and thirst and illness and all of that, yes, those things are real and can be very traumatic and painful. At the same time, most of our suffering is mental. Our thinking, our feeling, our emotions, what we're making out of all the stuff, how we're interpreting the world around us. If we would diffuse all of our thinking, if we would just step away from it, if you would stop believing what your mind tells you, you would suddenly find yourself in a place of great peace. I've often said it that there is one God that everyone worships, the atheist and the religious person and the spiritual person alike. Everybody on this planet worships. And that God is this one, the God of the mind. We believe it blindly, we follow it blindly, we obey whatever it tells us, we do not question it, we do not doubt it. And it is the great deceiver. Much of what it tells us is nonsense. Much of what it tells us is, if you were to stop and actually verify everything your mind tells you, you would find out that more than 90% is nonsense. 10% would be the factual stuff that you need to deal with about how to get from point A to point B, or do this or do that. But 90% of the interpretations it has about reality, or the projections it has about the future, or the feelings it has about the past, are nonsense. Nonsense because they are based on insufficient data. Most of the time, if I'm hurt by somebody or angry at somebody, it's usually because I haven't stopped to take the time to hear their point of view. But the moment I stop and I listen to them and understand their point of view and why they did what they did, then even the greatest upset and anger fades away. Sometimes not, but most of the time. I would say 9 out of 10 times. When you truly listen to another person compassionately, understand their point of view, you'll realize your mind had you worked up in a frenzy and it had you all, agitated. But there was another reality going on out there. And that other reality, you were unaware of it. So that's what I mean by insufficient data, right? And because of insufficient data, because we don't know everything, we get focused in a sort of tunnel vision about a particular thought or perception or point of view. And then we get all worked up about that and upset and hurt and angry and sad and whatever. But pause. Pause and listen and observe and ask. And you will find that it becomes easier and easier to break the mythology of your own mind. the stories it makes up, the myths it makes up, the absolutely crazy stuff that it does. Right? It is quickly weaving together conclusions of all kinds, and it doesn't stop to get all the facts and figures. Okay, anyone got questions? I've been rambling along. Thoughts, observations, feelings, whatever else has come up for you. Love to hear it. Tapasya asks, if time permits, could you elaborate a little bit on the battle between goodness, passion, and ignorance? Is that related to sattva, rajas, and tamas? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Goodness, passion, and ignorance is sattva, rajas, and tamas. Same thing, just English, Sanskrit. That's it. The battle is in our minds, and I've been talking about it. The battle within our minds of which way to go. And the way to go will never be revealed by thinking. The way to go, the path to take, the direction in which to live your life will always be revealed when your mind is peaceful. Big decisions should always be taken in a peaceful place. Go for a walk, find a place of peace, be without any thought, just let it all go. And then the answer will pop into your mind. Clarity will come, and you will be able to understand exactly what needs to be done. The mode of goodness illuminates the path. The mode of goodness illuminates whatever is going on in your life. So therefore, in all ways, try to attain to the mode of goodness. Sattva gun. The result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. Pious action. I'll go to the next verse that will explain. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. So let's understand what is real. Real knowledge is gyan, spiritual knowledge. Spiritual wisdom develops. You might say, well, develops? What do you mean develops? As your mind becomes more peaceful, as your mind becomes more in the mode of goodness, it's like if you were to look at a jar, it had sand in it that was swirling around. Mode of goodness is when that sand settles down. And now your mind is peaceful and you can see things clearly. That is real knowledge. Real knowledge is wisdom that illuminates the world. That is what we want to cultivate. A way of living in this world where we're not reacting, where we're not jumping at every situation that comes our way and getting all worked up and reactive, but rather we are observing our thoughts, observing our emotions, observing what is going on inside, observing, pause. The most important word you can take away today is pause. Pause and watch what your mind is doing, what your emotions are doing, how it's spinning the story. Watch. And you'll realize most of the time it's nonsense. And once you realize it's nonsense, there'll be nothing more. So in other words, challenge the mind and say, how do you know? What's the evidence? Prove it. Put it on the spot. And when it cannot prove it, then you say, case dismissed. Right? Whatever it's trying to tell you. And you'll find that as you begin to release the assumptions and all the made up stuff of the mind, it will become peaceful. It will become clear and uncluttered, and you will be able to see things with the eyes of wisdom. You will begin to see things, as Krishna is saying here, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge or gyan develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. See, the more you desire and the more you chase your desires, the more you want. It's a never-ending rat race. The pursuit of happiness, as perceived by the American, I don't know, I don't think it's in the Constitution. Is it in the Constitution? Pursuit of happiness? No, where is it? It's drafted somewhere. I'm getting all these signals now. Somebody want to say it? The pursuit of happiness. Where does that come from? Say it. Unmute yourself. Declaration of Independence. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So, the pursuit of happiness is rajas, the mode of passion. You're pursuing happiness. The more you pursue it, the more it runs from you. It's like a mirage in the desert. No matter how much you chase after it, it keeps on going further and further and further away. Real happiness was with you all along. It was inside you. All you had to do was pause, quiet your mind down, get it to settle down, and then you could feel that happiness that lies within. It's very different than the happiness of the world, but it is the real happiness. So from the mode of passion, by chasing more and more and more, pursuing happiness as is envisioned in the Declaration of Independence, you find that greed develops. Now, greed is what our whole capitalistic society is based on. More and more and more and more. And hey, in a way, we all want more. The question is, what do you want more of? In your pursuit for more of the things of the world, you forget that the real more, the desire for more, which is innate in all of us, we all want more. Whether that's more sleep, or whether that's more drugs, or whether that's more alcohol for the person who's in the mode of ignorance, or whether that's more money or more success or more fame for the person in the mode of passion, or whether that's more peace or more love or more compassion for the person in the mode of goodness. More is the common factor. The only question is, where are you going to apply it? It is the instinct of the soul to want more. It's not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing to want more. The question is, what are you wanting more of? And where is that pursuit of more taking you? If that pursuit of more is taking you to more love, more peace, more harmony, more wisdom, more clarity, then you're on the right track. And if it's taking you towards more greed, more wanting, and look, if wealth comes to you easily and effortlessly, by all means embrace it. I'm not saying anything against wealth or trying to propagate that people should be poor. Neither poverty nor wealth are going to determine your happiness, either way. Okay? Having or not having is not going to determine happiness. Happiness is a product of something that lies within you. It has nothing to do with the outer world. So whether you have it or you don't, not a big deal. The point is, where are you putting your energy? And are you keeping some energy for the real you, for the pursuit of real happiness, lasting happiness, happiness that is not based upon some external pursuit, happiness that is internal. If you're doing that, then you're on the right track and your life will be successful. You will come to that mode of goodness and you will find yourself literally surrounded by happiness. The sufferings of the world will minimize. They will be there. There will be problems, but they will not hit you the way they hit most people. For most people, the smallest thing hits them so badly, they get affected, they get bothered, they get hassled, they get angry, they get hurt, they get. I look at it and say, really? Is that all it takes? Become more attached to that inner self, and you will find that the things of this world will not affect you as they did in the past. We'll stop over here. I'm going to pause for a few minutes if there's any last minute questions, if there's anyone who is perhaps feeling a little awkward, wanted to ask something. You can write it down if you're not feeling like you want to get on video and ask. But if you're okay with getting on video, I'd love to see your face and have you ask the question. Is there anyone who's got something on their mind? Did any of this land? Did you agree or disagree? Did you find yourself being provoked to think about something? What are you taking away from here today? Those might be some things to look at. Aleka, one lovely question. She asks, how can this spiritual knowledge translate to people who live in poverty and focusing on survival? The truth, Aleka, is that when people are hungry and suffering, that is not the time to speak to them of spiritual knowledge. One should have cultivated that well in advance so that when suffering of that nature comes, then one has got a buffer, one has the ability, one has developed the muscle, one has got the strength to be able to deal with it. For example, we don't send astronauts to space without giving them years and years of training so they can survive in that kind of environment. We don't send athletes to the Olympics without spending years of training, right? So in the same way, we need to train ourselves, our children, our generations to come in how to be able to have spiritual wisdom by which to live their lives. Because when we do that, that is our primary responsibility, not just teaching them math and science and all of that stuff, but also how to teach them spiritual wisdom. When we do that, they will be ready to take on the suffering. And then, if you'll see, some of the wisest people that I have ever met, some of the most spiritually evolved people I have met, have been at two different extremes. Either extremely poor, with little, just barely enough to eat and survive, or extremely wealthy. I've seen them at both ends of the spectrum, but mostly I've seen them living very simple lives. They're not too overcome by the ways of the world. Yeah, it's okay. The ways of the world are nice. There are lots of toys to play with out here. Lots of toys. But as long as you understand that the things of the world are toys, they're not the reality, then it's okay. Have them, enjoy them. But don't look to them for happiness, because that they cannot give you. Don't look to them for love or peace or any of those things. They cannot give you that. But they can be fun. Good food can be fun. Good music can be fun. Dancing can be fun. Movies can be fun. But you also got to do some of the other work, right? So the point is to develop the muscle of your spirit, to make it more and more powerful. As you awaken that spirit, how do you awaken it? Learning how to quiet the mind and learning how to trust that inner voice, learning how to trust that spirit that lies within you, learning to give it a voice so it can be heard, learning to recognize it. The more you practice this on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment, you will find that this muscle in you becomes stronger. The spiritual muscle in you becomes stronger. And then when situations come in, let's take the situation, an extreme situation like Aleka mentions, poverty or survival issues or health issues, right? Or death or disease or whatever it might be. you are far more equipped. You're a more powerful human being, better equipped to deal with it. That's the difference. Everybody deals with the stuff that happens in the world. Birth, death, old age, and disease happen to everyone. But how you deal with it is going to make all the difference. Situations will come to everyone. And as the years pass and the next few 20, 30, 50, 100 years, I don't know where this world is headed, but I'm sure of one thing. It is going to throw at us more challenges than we've ever had. And it's going to make things even more difficult. We think we have made things easy and comfortable and good. That is the grand illusion. But because everything has become comfortable and easy, we have not developed the human being. We have developed the machine, but not the human. We have developed the computer, but not the mind. And that is going to be our downfall. But so it is. What we can do is encourage each other, inspire each other, and that's what I hope to do through these gatherings over here. We're here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, usually for an hour or a little over an hour, and we'd love to see you here every Tuesday. If you're not on the mailing list, please put your email down in the chat. You can private message me in the chat. Put your email address there, and I'd love to keep you informed through our direct mailing list that is there, and that way you'll be reminded every week that, hey, come join us. We'd love to have you here. And by the way, if you want to catch up on previous episodes of these talks, they're all on YouTube. You'll find a playlist there. First, just type my name in, Rohit Juneja, and then go to my, you'll find my page, and then look for the playlist of Bhagavad Gita. And all of them, at least for the past 1 year or so, they're all there. So you'll have these recordings of these kind of conversations, just as we are here right now. All right. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor to have you here. Lots of love. Good night.